get into some business news now. The 16th of October is World Food Day. Now, this is a day set aside by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization with the aim of shedding light on the millions of people globally who lack the means to afford a nutritious diet. Now, today, giant retailer Shoprite has launched its food index to bring focus to South Africa's own scarcity issues. Shoprite research shows that nearly half of South Africa's population will be food insecure by 2025, with 48.9% of the population potentially not having enough to eat. To unpack the numbers, we're now joined by Shoprite Group's Head of Sustainability and CSI, Sanjeev Raghubir. Sanjeev, just looking at the food index that you've released, what are the numbers telling you about South Africa's own food scarcity situation?
Hey, good afternoon. Shoprite conducted this research to get a better understanding of the extent of food insecurity in the country, to help us focus our efforts in terms of our existing and future programs. And what the numbers tell us is that there's likely to be a slight improvement in food security by 2025, but this still represents around less than half the population being food insecure. So whilst the trends are somewhat positive, we're still largely concerned about the level of food insecurity by 2025.
And Sanjeev, if you could just help us paint a picture here in terms of South Africa's context. When we talk about somebody who's food insecure, what exactly are we talking about? Can they not, have enough food until the next end of the month, or maybe they don't know what they want to have for dinner that particular day?
So the definition includes a person who is unable to have food for a single day, for an entire day. And that represents a level of, or the level of food insecurity that is described.
Now, the index shows that 1 in 5 households in the country don't know where their next meal is coming from. What are some of the factors causing this in South Africa?
So there's a number of factors. I think if you look at factors like unemployment, access to resources, the national and regional economic growth, and to some extent community cohesion or a lack thereof, these all contribute towards households being food insecure. Of course, a significant contributor is the price of food as well. So the costing of food and whether people have sufficient resources to purchase sufficient food.
One would think in South Africa's context it would be rural areas that are suffering the most when it comes to food insecurity. But when you look at some of your numbers, places like KwaZulu-Natal, places like the Western Cape and Gauteng, where there are a lot of vast metro areas, those areas also are suffering food insecurity.
Yeah, what the research showed us was that there were levels of food security across the country, whether it's in rural areas, whether it's in urban areas. We had levels of food security there as well. But in some of the provinces, the level of food security was higher in urban areas than it was in rural areas. And there may be a number of reasons for this. One of the reasons is likely that people living in rural areas are able to grow their own food and to some extent have a bit of sustenance when there are times of either a lack of resources, etc. So I think living in a rural area allows you to have space to be able to grow some of your own food.
But the fight, Sanjeev, is not just for food security. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization, the theme for this year is Water is Life. What insights, if any, does the index tell us about South Africa's water crisis?
I think we know that South Africa is a water-scarce country, and agriculture relies tremendously on water. A significant, more than 2/3 of the water in South Africa is used for agriculture. So any impact or lack of water will have a direct impact on the agriculture and ability to grow food, and will subsequently complicate and make the availability of food more scarce and drive more levels of food insecurity. So for those reasons, we have to be, as a country, more mindful on how we consume, how we use our water on a daily basis.
Now, as a retailer, Shoprite serves different segments in the country, those who shop from Checkers goods online and those who rely on subsidized meals from Shoprite. What has the index taught you about South African households, especially in the current economic environment?
I think one of the things we looked at is what is the impact that Shoprite can have in terms of households that are food insecure. So the group started way back in 2016. It introduced a 600-gram loaf of bread for as little as R5. And the idea there was to give the seemingly low purchasing power of a R5 coin the ability to purchase food in the stores. So since 2016, you are still able to go into a Shoprite store and buy a loaf of bread for as little as R5. In 2017, the group further expanded its range of R5 meals, and it continues to innovate. I mean, even now, recently we introduced a R5 protein-rich liver burger that you can go into a store and buy for R5.
And what can corporate South Africa do as well with government to help more people escape food insecurity in the country? You've given up the insights, you've given us the numbers, but what can be done on the ground and from a policy level to make sure that more people are out of that poverty scale?
I think what we see is that there isn't one entity, one organization that can do this on their own. So what we are calling for is a need for wider collaboration to addressing food insecurity. And this collaboration across the value chain, from agriculture to manufacturers to retailers, government, civil society, NGOs that work in the space. There's a need for collaboration so that efforts are not duplicated and that we work together on a plan to end or a plan towards zero hunger by 2030 in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We're seeing with a slight shift in improvement in food security that it is possible, it can be done, and I think it can only happen through collaboration and working together.
Well, that was Shoprite Group's Head of Sustainability and CSI, Sanjeev Raghubir, talking to us about the company's food index highlighted today on World Food Day.